I know I'm about a week or two too late past when this came out and people were talking about it, but I watched Punisher Last Kill when it first came out, and like the day of, like I came home from work and put it right on. I really liked it. I don't know why people were so harsh on it. I guess people wanted more episodes or more time. It didn't really seem like there was a clear answer here. And if you guys were going off of like the time thing, I mean, the Guardian special and the Werewolf by Midnight special were around the same time frame, and they only got one thing. So I don't understand where the complaints are. But I personally thought this was really good. Me personally, I'm just kind of annoyed that we kind of got this another time of Frank kind of like dipping off and then kind of getting back into the game one last time. Like it was just kind of like I've seen this before, but there seems to be more of a merit to why. And I guess it's like setting up something bigger for Frank down the line, but it didn't really make sense after what I saw at the end of Daredevil. Now, at the end of Daredevil, it seemed like he was purposely going to break out and go deal with the whole Fisk situation on his own terms, and dealing with like the task force, because that was his big issue in the season one finale, and then that didn't seem to be the case. It seemed like he had to like deal with some stuff that he caused before, and dealing with his neighborhood being completely out of line, but also getting a bounty put on his head on some old John Wick 2 type shit, and going out there to do his thing. Now, me personally, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I just feel like we've seen this before. Now, Jon Bernthal puts on one incredible performance, probably one of my favorite performances I've watched in the MCU. Fight me on it, I don't care. I legitimately was torn up watching him perform because he just did such a great job. And I think the part that made me laugh was the girl that played his daughter in this was his actual daughter. So I guess he could just like, sadly enough, pretend it was her and just put out more emotion that way. That's why you see his daughter more than like the rest of the family, because that was the actual kid. That's adorable, actually. But he just did such a great job. Then like the ending when he's like reciting the penny and dime thing was just a chef's kiss. But this is not really going to be super long because the thing is only 44 minutes, but it allowed him to like that endless cycle of violence. After years of it, Frank dips off, but he got into Daredevil because she wanted to mess some stuff up for Karen. And it was cool to see Deborah Ann Woll for 2 seconds, even if it was like a figment of his imagination, even though I thought it was real because I'm like that. But yeah, and he thought he was done. He was done. I got nothing left to do. Maybe it's time for me to actually just end myself and call it a day, which is really dark actually, but it's beautifully done. And just when he's about to do it, he finds out he's got some stuff to do. He's haunted by his memories. He's haunted by the loss. He's haunted by everything. But he just has to do it. He's the Punisher. He has to punish people. There is some classic Punisher storylines. I'm not even going to pretend that I'm like one of the biggest Punisher fans. Honestly, I've said it before. I don't really care for the Punisher. I don't really like. If you read one Punisher story, I feel like I've read them all. I've read a few. Now, when he's in other stuff, it's like, okay, cool, Punisher's here. It's nice to read a comic that has a guest star, but I honestly don't care about the Punisher. But the MCU's Punisher is what is like. I love him so much. Like I could watch the whole show, Daredevil season two, the one scene, the one last episode of season one of Daredevil Born Again, and the one scene in episode 4 or 5 of Daredevil Born Again season one. I could just watch him because I love whenever he's on screen. It just does something for me. Well, other than that, the Punisher can go wherever he's going to go. I'm not going to care enough to read that comic. Now, I will say the inspiration that I liked the most was the fact that they clearly inspired the final action sequence on the raid. Like, it was very John Wick, but also they very clearly inspired that last thing off the raid. It was like a messed up apartment complex, and he's walking through the apartment complex just putting people down. That is very much the raid. And I think they did their nice own little thing on it. I loved some of the shots he took. I love some of the ways he took out some of the guys. It was a fight for survival, and it was what it was. He just did him, and it is a very brutal, uncompromising project. Like the MCU actually went for it and stayed that way. It's intense, it's visceral, it's all hell. But they let it go. They let it go. And I said, this is exactly what happens when you have the MCU finally saying, you know what, we're not even we're not even gonna pull the punches anymore because people have been complaining about the MCU formula for so long. We're just gonna let projects be projects now. Now that doesn't mean Spider-Man isn't gonna be forced to be a little bit more MCU-y because it's Spider-Man, and they do still want kids to see it. But Punisher: One Last Kill was clearly made for adults who like violence. It was very much like, you want it, you got it. Here's a shotgun to the face. Here's some blood splatter. Here's an axe to the. Here's some headshots from one side of the apartment to the other. Here's somebody getting stabbed in the neck. Here's it is probably the most violent MCU project. And Daredevil Born Again is very violent for the MCU, but Punisher in 44 minutes did did justice to the violence in any way, shape, or form. And like they do point out, there's a physical, psychological toll on Frank's lifestyle. They don't glorify the lifestyle. Like he's very much not a sane, okay person because of his lifestyle, and that's a good thing. Like they handled that really well. I think Jon Bernthal captures it really well, and I just think the story where he spent years defining himself through Loss and Revenge. There is a man. Is there anything left underneath that skull logo? Like, is he just the Punisher? Is Frank Castle even there anymore? And something that it's not really touched on in the Daredevil show or the Punisher show. Yeah, he has some insane PTSD. He has some very, very intense, insane PTSD that I think he needs to meet Charles and have Charles do something about that. 'Cause my man's PTSD is through the roof. It is through the roof. Now, I think what we're going to start seeing more is that Marvel's going to focus more on their street level characters. Like I do think Punisher: One Last Kill will lead into Spider-Man, but we're not going to get like a direct lead into Spider-Man, but we're going to see him be Punishering throughout Spider-Man: One Last Kill. But we're not going to get more of that actual Punisher level Punisher stuff. Probably a Punisher season 1 or another Punisher special, or hell, we might see him in Daredevil season 3, given the whole JJ, Luke, and Danny situation. So maybe Frank might show up for an episode and you know tell them they suck or something. Like I don't know, but you know, I think we're gonna. I think what they're setting up with Frank might be good. We don't know, but until then, we'll just have to wait and see. We'll have to wait till Spider Man, which is in 2 months. So if you've made it this far, make sure you like, comment, subscribe for more. Let me know how y'all feel down below, and I'll see y'all on the next one.